This week's SyrupCast is sponsored by Roam Mobility. Stop paying roaming fees. For unlimited talk, text, and data while traveling in the US, visit roammobility.com and order your SIM card today.
Want to get my clap on?
Welcome to SyrupCast episode 25 on this, the snowiest day in a few days. Nope, it is snowing like crazy outside, but we are nice and comfy in our homes.
Yay.
Drinking something. I'm drinking tea. Douglas Soltis, what are you drinking? Hello, sir.
Straight vodka. What's up? Team Blanket.
Straight vodka. Well done. This is Dostoevsky's Russia, after all. And this is the Crime and Punishment podcast.
Ooh,
Holy
interesting
shit,
direction.
Ooh, I swore.
Oh, whoops.
Whoopsie daisy. And was that actually vodka, Doug?
Yeah, I'm glad our mics have cough buttons. Wow.
Woo. Jane McIntyre, how are you? Are you sober?
I am sober as a judge.
Sober as a Supreme Court judge?
Oh, gosh.
Not a grand jury.
They can't have been sober. I can't tell you that much.
Well, it was a 4-3 decision, and we'll get to it later.
Three of them were sober.
First, the BlackBerry Classic. Okay, let's get right into
it. Hey.
Full disclosure, this is the second time we were doing this podcast. We had some technical difficulties, and we have already talked for about 15 minutes. So whatever you're about to hear, this is our second go-around.
This is a good version.
This
This is the distilled version, yeah.
This is
Douglas is going to cut out all the foofiness and the hot air, and he's just going to give you the facts.
You had, if the first time was the Smirnoff vodka, then this is the Grey Goose.
Oh, yeah. Grey Goose Podcast. That's the name right there.
Green Label Stoli only.
Okay. I don't know anything about vodka, so I just know that.
It was water.
Oh.
I'm dehydrated. I wanted to.
No, you should have owned it.
Yeah. I thought you were cool, Doug.
Yeah, now that you're not drinking vodka, our tea just sounds
Trumps
even better.
So the Classic.
Orange Pico. BlackBerry Classic. So we're coming out next week, next Wednesday. There's a launch event in New York. I'm going down for all the festivities. And we'll see what they have in store. But we do know a few things about the Classic. First of all, it is $500 outright. It's already up for pre-order. Second of all, it is $50 on contract, which is significantly less than the Passport and significantly less than most BlackBerry flagships. And that's because this isn't really a flagship. This is a bold 9900 with a slightly bigger screen, a slightly higher resolution screen. We do know a lot of things. First of all, it looks exactly the same as the Bold, but it's got the internals of a Q10. So on paper, not that impressive. But what it does have is that trackpad that everybody loves. Does anybody love the trackpad anymore? Jane, what do you think?
I just thought it was funny that you said it's not a flagship, and I really thought you were going to say that it was an afterthought. I was like, burn! But, yeah, no, because I just don't see this factoring into BlackBerry's bottom line. I don't know why this phone exists. I don't get it. Maybe it's a nostalgia thing. Well, that's what they're banking on, I guess. But I don't know. I just don't. If I was a Bold 900 fan, would I want this? Would I get really excited? Yeah, maybe. But
I think so.
Oh, I don't know what these people think. I don't know what their thought process is.
So the caveat to this, or the context that we so thoroughly and juicily discussed before, is that a significant portion of our readers are coming to look for BlackBerry Classic information. So a bit of our interest in this is on discovering our readers' interests in the Classic and why they want a Q10 with wearing the clothing, the belt of the 9900, branded as a throwback, branded as the Mini Cooper, the greatest hits version. And I think it's the branding that gets the attention for people to pay this some mind, and then there are people that will not give up their BBOS, BlackBerry 7 OS device that would be far more likely to buy this than, say, a Q10, Q20, Q30, Q whatever, because they just want their same thing that they've always had, just a little bit better. But that doesn't explain, I think the way that we put it, or because we're doing a tete-a-tete on this, we're like, we saw our numbers, people are coming into MobileSyrup, they're just like, BlackBerry Classic all over the place. If every dude on Base Street from 2004 bought a Classic in 2014, that still wouldn't account for the interest that our site is demonstrating in this device, and I think it's because of the branding. I think it's because Chen came out and changed the way that they label the devices. It's not a Porsche style kind of like Z this, Q this. They have identities, and I think it was a really smart move to.
But it doesn't have an identity. Like you talked about how it's essentially, it's like a Q10 in Bold 9900 clothing ish, but it's got like the belt. I don't know, but it reminds me of, you said the Mini Cooper. It reminds me of when they brought out the Mini Cooper SUV, and they were like, "Hey, it's a Mini Cooper," and because branding, and most people were like, "No, it's not. It's not a Mini. That's not a Mini Cooper. It's not Mini." So I feel like it's when you talk about the phones have like an identity, I feel like the Classic doesn't really have its own identity. It's just they're just trying to hawk it off the back of the success of the Bold 9900.
Well,
they're not even denying that.
Yeah, no, but that's what I mean. So I don't think that it's got its own identity. Like you were saying, Chen came in and his, I guess, his way of leading the company. These phones have their own identity, and the Passport, I would agree, definitely does. But this, I don't think it has its own identity.
Because it's strange, but that's
its identity.
It is. It's strange. It's
yeah, no,
like
and I agree.
people look at it and they go, "Oh, that's interesting," but the Classic is interesting for the fact that it's essentially a reboot. It's not a sequel. It's a reboot. And it's one of those things where they rebooted the movie too soon, with slightly better special effects. And they're expecting people to line up.
Wow.
It is. No, it's a better Spider-Man.
BlackBerry Classic is the amazing Spider-Man of smartphones.
Ooh, that's good, because there's a lot to be taken from that. The Amazing Spider-Man was youthful. It was sort of a different storyline, better special effects, but ultimately it was soulless. There was really no, like, the Sam Raimi Spider-Mans were clumsy, but they were clumsy in sort of a
charming way.
Yeah, like you sort of saw the director behind them. This doesn't seem like there's much of anything there other than the fact that it's taking. And what's interesting about it is that I spoke to somebody during the Passport event about the Classic, and they told me that the Classic's existence is tied to the fact that people found the Q10 too confusing when they got it. That the 9900, people liked it so much because it was straightforward. They understood how to use it, and there were a lot of people who upgraded to the Q10 expecting a 9900 experience. And
what did they find confusing about it?
The gestures. Okay. They found BlackBerry 10 as an OS confusing.
So let's give them another phone with BlackBerry 10.
Yeah. So the solution to that isn't then taking that OS and then throwing more stuff on top of it. So going back to your soulless point, which sounds harsh, but the thing about this is, like, you were talking about this device having an identity of the reboot of this, but again, the reboot isn't being done by the original people. This is now a company with entirely new leadership, with QNX running the software helm, both at the OS level and the design level, who had no input on any of the BlackBerry OS devices and the hardware, and it's being manufactured by Foxconn. So this literally is a new approximation of the original, not the classic coming back.
That's exactly the same as the Amazing Spider-Man.
That's what I'm saying. At
the time, this was a Sony Pictures movie, and then Marvel got bought by.
Shout out Sony Pictures. Poor
guys.
Yeah,
poor guys.
Seriously. Poor guys. Seriously.
But now we know a few things as well about Spider-Man.
Yeah.
They wanted Spider-Man to be a guest on the 2016 Captain America movie, and that didn't happen. But
also
Marvel
canceled. So
Marvel was bought by Disney, and Disney bought Lucasfilms, and they bought everything else. But Marvel is now subsumed into Disney. It's still an independent subsidiary, but essentially Disney is making all the shots, and they're trying to get every superhero in the same movie. But back in 2002, when Spider-Man was rebooted for the first time, because there were still Spider-Man movies before that, it was before this this huge influx of superhero movies, and it existed on its own. But the classic is basically the 2002 Spider-Man with the Amazing Spider-Man title, right? Because it's existing in a completely different smartphone world when people are used to touchscreen devices.
No. I think you got that wrong. It's a totally new thing made by new people, masquerading as the 2002.
Right, but where is its soul? Where is its intention?
It's the second half of a ghost-written Michael Crichton book that was finished after he died.
Wow, this is so much. If people had heard the now lost and forgotten original pod, this was like
a much more highbrow discussion.
Yeah, weird. And now, also, shout outs not making a movie about assassinating a dictator.
Oh my God.
But no, okay.
That was the reason.
But I guess to draw this together, I think there's the big disconnect is there's a lot of interest around what people will think of as someone bringing back something that was at least beloved before under that label, classic. Can it still be beloved now? When it's not that. It's new hardware, new OS made by new people.
Would it be more fair to say that it's not a reboot of the Bold 9900, but like a do-over for the Q10?
That's a really good point, because the Q10, and BlackBerry's acknowledged this, the Q10 was not the phone that they thought it would be, because people didn't really like BlackBerry 10 in that form factor. They were expecting the Bold, the Bold 9920, and they got this weird. And at the time, BlackBerry 10 wasn't a very good touchscreen OS anyway. I mean, it was fast, it was fluid, but there weren't a lot of third-party apps. The Android support was very lackluster. I think with this, at least you can get an approximation of the best of both worlds. It's not quite there. You still lose out on a lot of functionality if you're coming from an iPhone or an Android, but if you're coming from a Bold 9900, this is going to be very familiar and yet comforting enough that you feel like it's a big upgrade.
This is an OS built for peak and flow, for gestures and forward, not backwards, and now they've added a menu button. And a lot of developers who have built native BlackBerry 10 apps, who, if they wanted to, added menu buttons as a touchscreen interface, are now going to have to completely redesign their user interfaces, because there's now going to be a dedicated menu button on the device. It's so kludgy. It's a kludge masquerading as a reboot, and it's being built by someone who has a history of maybe, how do I put this, not having the best manufacturing record. And this device is being officially announced and released 2 weeks before Christmas, which is basically beyond the point at which sales for this device would really deliver in 2014 over the holidays. And I'm not so sure how many devices that they're going to even have ready to fulfill orders this year.
Right, but it's also sales channel or sales run through is going to begin right at the beginning of their new quarter, which means that they're going to be able to go because they're announcing their quarterly earnings tomorrow, which is December 12th. And as a result, they're going to have a full 3 months of sell-through for the Classic, which is unheard of usually when you bring out a smartphone.
Yeah.
It's not going to be over the Christmas break, or at least it will be for a week. But it'll be.
But it doesn't matter anyways. If that was any other hardware manufacturer, would be like, well, they're screwed because no one's going to buy a phone at this time.
Right.
But they're only trying to sell it to the people who are holding on to legacy BlackBerries anyways, which is like a benefit and then also a limitation because that's not that many people. Like, it allows them to retain and generate revenue from a current installed base. But if you look at the Canadian or the global numbers, that installed base of legacy BlackBerry 7 users is like what, less than 1%?
No, it's a lot higher than that.
Of legacy BlackBerry. So not like BlackBerry's total market share is BB10 and BB7, but what percentage of that is BB7?
A lot. There's a lot of BB7 users still.
Yeah, but is that 1% of global?
Of global. Oh, global as in all smartphones.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, way less, probably.
So
but that's because BlackBerry is like way less than 1% of all smartphones.
Yeah. So then, what impact will this lately released, quickly rebooted device, like what will it do when the real story about BlackBerry is all the software stuff that they're doing? Whereas just today, it was announced that Ford is booting Microsoft to put QNX in their cars. Like, that's the BlackBerry story that's going to matter, not this device.
Yeah, I mean, this device is basically catering to people who would have upgraded to a new phone from a different manufacturer once their Bold 9900s bit the dust. They're just giving these people an upgrade path that keeps them within the BlackBerry ecosystem, period. So... And I apologize, I made a mistake. The reporting date is not tomorrow, the 12th. It's the following Friday, the 19th. So
right after
the launch of the Classic, which means that there's still going to be 3 months of sell-through. So yeah, I mean, the Classic is an interesting product for what it isn't more than what it is. This is certainly not going up against it's not even pretending to go up against the latest phones from Apple or Samsung. That's what to some extent the Passport is for. This is just filling a gap in the company's potential user base that the Q10 just never could.
Yeah, but it's man.
Yeah, but didn't they expect the Q10 to fill a gap in the user space?
Yeah, they did, and they're going to try again. I mean, that was Thorsten. This is Chen, right? BlackBerry under Thorsten was a very different company. So we'll see.
Post a comment and let us know why you would search about information about the.
Yeah, why you care about it.
Yeah, is it a nostalgia thing? I mean, are you going to buy one, or is it more like hey, I just want to know about it because it's a Canadian company and they're on the up and up? Or at least on the up and sideways.
So did you go and see it because it was Spider-Man or just for Emma Stone? That's what we want to know.
Andrew Garfield.
Yeah.
No, Emma Stone. Obviously Emma Stone. Yeah. Shout out to Emma Stone. Birdman.
What?
Oh, so good. What else is still
Android
good
now?
Is Android Wear 5. Finally, watch face API. Custom watch faces that are endorsed by Google, awesome companies such as Ustwo, who made the game Monument Valley that you must buy because it's amazing. They are
5 stars.
They have given their interpretation of the Android watch face ecosystem there's some love. So if you do have an Android Wear device, Moto 360. Smartphone or SmartWatch 3, LG G Watch, Samsung Gear Live. Your update is coming. It may not be there yet, but it'll come out in the maybe next week or so. Is this? I mean, there are some significant updates here. Not to mention the fact that you can finally get rid of specific apps sending you notifications from your watch itself rather than banning it on your phone. So, what do you think, Jen? You wear a Moto 360 every day. Have you been looking forward to this?
Yes and no. I mean, Google talked a lot yesterday about how developers have found lots of great ways to get watch faces out there before the watch face API, and they've been really creative about it. And Google has said, any non-compliant apps will be, like watch face apps will be removed by end of January. But I was super excited about it, and then I realized that I already use other apps to do custom Facer and stuff to do custom watch faces, and I'm excited, but I'm not. I mean, I had a mini freak out yesterday when it happened, and then when I've had the night to sleep on it, so now I'm whatevs. Are you excited?
You realized there was just watch faces?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'm excited because the watch that I wear the most right now, which is the LG G Watch R, has an amazing screen and god-awful watch faces. And none of the third-party ones, the unofficial ones that I've seen, have come close to the stylings of the Moto 360, which I really love, even though Motorola's given you a bit more choice there, adding your own backgrounds, and they let you customize it through Moto Connect. I don't love the screen on the Moto 360, so I want to be able to download watch faces from a third-party developer that can be used on any smartwatch. And I also like the fact that Ustwo is not just designing interesting smartwatches; they're doing watch faces. They're doing watch faces that have utility. So they plug into your calendar and they show you when is your next meeting, or let me see here. They have a couple of other ones which are really interesting. They have something called Next, which is your next calendar episode. It shows you the weather and the upcoming weather in a 3-pane circular watch face. Oh, that's runway. Sorry. Episode is just the weather. It says rain, then sun, or sun, then more sun, stuff like that. And then this one is really cool. It's called the Albumin, and it's an abstract calendar face showing a constant 12-hour overview of your day. Large blobs indicate when you're busy. And then it says, fun fact, albumin is the white of an egg. So it's very minimal, and this is really cool. And they've come out with some other ones. They're not sort of productivity-based. They're just sort of fun and really beautiful. And I can't wait to try them, and I can't try them until I have 5.0, so I'm really waiting for my update.
Yeah, I think someone in the comments on that story said that he uses Android Wear and he bought it just because he wanted to try it. And this is the way I feel about it too, but he bought it just to try it because he was like, yeah, whatever. And now he can't live without it, and he gets annoyed when he doesn't have it just because it's just nice to have the notifications right there. So I think, as more updates add, not necessarily more utility, but just, I think, better solutions to what it already does. It would be exciting.
Yeah, and on that note, I've actually got the SmartWatch 3 by Sony in my hands, and this is their brand new device. It's coming to Sony stores and online in the next couple of weeks, but it's available on Google Play already. And this is interesting for a number of reasons. It's relatively modular in the sense that you can take out the watch itself, and if you're looking at the video podcast, you can see here I have it just removed from the sports strap. But at the same time, it's also waterproof. It has a GPS in it, and it does not have a heart rate sensor, but it's well made. It's really, really nice, and I don't know. I like it a lot. The screen's pretty terrible, actually, but that's really the only downside. It has some pretty bad. Doug, you're laughing.
Well, so it's so the one thing that you're going to spend all your time looking at's not good.
True.
It did look pretty it was as the design was as sexy as rubber can be.
Yeah.
As sexy as rubber can be.
Are you sure? What kind of rubber products are you buying? No, I think when we looked at it yesterday, I noticed that with the most of the bulk is underneath. So when you popped it out, I don't know if you can show it again, but when you have it in the strap, they put all the bulk kind of on the part that's going to be on your wrist. So when you look at it when someone else looks at it, when you look at it from like top down, it's not like this big chunk that sticks up from your wrist. It looks a lot more discreet.
Yep. I still think the Zen Watch is the best looking smart next to the Moto 360. This doesn't look bad. It just kind of looks plain and boring. The Moto 360 is probably my favorite, but none of them are perfect.
Sony might say that instead of plain and boring, it's like understated, but
utilitarian.
Yeah.
Very sporty.
But like, okay, so I don't want to be.
Do it.
I don't want to be a D word. I don't want to be a Douglas. But just hearing you guys talk for the past 5 minutes about just watch faces and just like.
Oh my God! You're going to talk about your
CRT
TV and your e-ink phone.
No, I'm just saying, like, are you guys actually hyped by this? Like, hype check, guys. Like,
I told you, I'm not hyped by it, but I'm excited that I think a lot of people misunderstand Android Wear as when are they going to give it more features? When are they going to do more with it? And I'm like, no, they're making it better. They're like making the things that it does now better, and I'm excited by that. We don't understand it. Like, things may go to the market so fast, so we don't even understand what we want to do with them yet.
I have no preconceived notion that Android Wear is very useful right now. It's not a particularly great product, but what it does relatively well, and because the hardware is all very similar and the software is controlled by Apple, oh my God.
Oh my God, this is great. I cannot wait. I can't wait for the comments. It's the best.
Well, I mean, in a sense, it will be controlled by Apple because anything that Google will follow. But
own it, Bader.
Oh, I'm owning it. I'm owning it.
Own your cat-loving, Apple-loving bias.
Oh, that comment was like that. Like hurt my soul. I love dogs.
Yeah.
Dogs are my
spirit animal.
Aside from my fiance and my job and you guys and my family, dogs are very close to why I am alive in this world. Like, I love dogs more than most people.
Yeah, Daniel's Patronus is definitely a dog.
So my spirit animal is an Irish Wolfhound. Anyway, besides the point, Google controls the software updates here, and right now I'm not even wearing an Android Wear watch. I'm wearing this Basis Peak, which is not a smartwatch at all. It's more of a fitness band that kind of portrays itself as a watch. It has a really interesting e-ink display. It's touch-based. I'm doing a review on it. I love it. It's not bulky. The battery lasts 5 days. In the middle of December, it's going to get an update that shows you your very basic notifications on iOS and Android. Android Wear has great potential, and that's what I'll say. I don't think it's met that potential yet.
Yeah, I think at the last wearables that we were at, this is the last wearables of 2014, and they had an awesome panel on smartwatches and smart bands, I guess, and just the varying levels of opinion on what people are going to use them for. And they had Minium was there, and they were talking about, do people want to type on it? Well, no, people don't want to type on it, and the reason they exist is so they can give you notifications, but people are still taking out their phones just as often because you can't, there's very little you can do, you can't action any notifications. So it really showed that it's still so new that even the developers and the companies making these devices are still feeling it out and really trying to figure out what the best experience for the user would be in terms of functionality.
Yeah, and if you don't know, so what Jane's talking about is the We Are Wearables series of meetup events, which currently mostly take place in Toronto, but I believe
there was one in Chicago.
Yeah, they're starting to bring around. So check them out. I think it's just wearewearables.com.
Yep.
See if one's coming to your neck of the woods.
But yeah, it goes to show. Yeah, it's so exciting, and yeah, huge amount of potential. But just figuring out where it's going is what's happening right now, and that's exciting. I think maybe. I don't know. Yeah, I saw you show off the peak there. I was wondering, do people? I find that when I wear any kind of smartwatch out, people are like, oh, is that one? They always say, is that the Apple Watch? And then their next question is always, oh, so what is it? It's a smartwatch? Like, what can it do? Does anybody ask you if the Basis Peak is a smartwatch, and then you have to be like, no, it's just Just a Fitbit that looks like a watch.
No, it's because it basically looks like a Casio.
Yeah.
It does not look like a. It doesn't look like a smartwatch at all because it's extremely. I wouldn't say unattractive, but it's very utilitarian looking.
Understated.
So, no, this is just stated. But yeah, I also think smartwatches are too expensive right now, and the SmartWatch 3 being $270 is just it's not really in most people's front of mind.
Mm.
So what else? We have a bunch more Android stuff. Android 5.0.1 is rolling out to various Android Nexus devices. The Nexus 4 and 6 have received that update over the air. It's starting, I think, it started yesterday. The factory images are available. They're also available for all the Nexus tablets, the Nexus 7 Wi-Fi 2013, the Nexus 9, and the Nexus 10. And there doesn't seem to be a whole lot different. It's just a bit of a bug fix update, and I think everything runs a little bit smoother. But I also think that this is the update that the OEMs are going to be using when they start rolling out Lollipop, and we saw that with the HTC One M8 and M7 Google Play editions. That received Android 5.0.1, and it was delayed, I think, by Google because they wanted that code to get there.
Yeah. So from our last podcast, that this is going to be the build that will be pushed out.
Right. Mm-hmm. So I've been running the HTC One M8 on Lollipop for the last few days, and it's amazing. It's super fast. It's really what I wanted from the Nexus 6, because the Nexus 6 is just enormous. So seeing what Lollipop looks like on a really good modern device. I've seen it on the Nexus 5, but I like the M8 better. I think I like it better as a phone. I'm excited. I'm excited to see what happens. So
me too.
Yeah. You haven't updated yours yet.
I won't let me. It keeps erroring. It keeps giving me an error. I think I need to. I don't know what I need to do, but
you need to start fresh.
Yeah, I
the
might
two
have
things
to.
that bummed me out most about the One M8 were Sense and then the camera, and this can potentially solve one of those two things.
Well, with the camera, the Lollipop update gives it access to the new Android camera API. So even though HTC did a really great job adding a bunch of manual features to the One M8 in its own Sense camera app, the Android Camera 2 API, which is the one that's rolling out on Lollipop, is just crazy flexible. And I've actually gotten some really great results from the M8 just through the regular Google Camera app. And I'd argue that they're better than what you'd find on the Sense app in 4.4. So we'll see. I mean, maybe we can do a little bit of a side-by-side comparison, but nothing's going to magically make the M8's 4-megapixel sensor better. But at least what it can, if the software can use the camera, what it captures to a better effect, then that's awesome.
Yeah. So you think that right now the HTC One M8 is the best Lollipop Android phone?
Yeah, I do. I think until the Moto X 2014 gets it, this is the best experience you're going to get from an Android phone right now. And I say that knowing that there are some, people who are going to get down on the camera, but the camera is what it is, right? Like, it'll still take great photos in most situations, and it still takes great photos in low light, so you're just going to have to suck it up and deal with it. But the battery's awesome, the screen's amazing, build quality's great.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, you can't break that phone.
No, you've dropped yours like 20 times.
No, I dropped it. I dropped it last night.
But you can mend it.
Well, I dropped it last night and got another nick on the side, and it's like a really sharp nick because it's metal. So now every time I hold it, it spikes me and says, "This is what happens when you don't put a case on it." But it still works fine. There was like a brief period at the weekend where the screen just became completely unresponsive. But I mean, I read this great story. I think it was on Android Central. Shortly after I started with MobileSyrup, couple months maybe, and it's basically was how many times he dropped the HTC One M8 over the summer, and he wasn't using a case, and he was trying to see, like how many drops would it take? What would be the straw that breaks the camel's back, and nothing really did in the traditional sense, in that it didn't break the screen, but certain things started to go wonky after a while. So like he would take a picture, but it would be like just all out of focus all the time.
Yeah.
So I feel like we're reaching.
That's the classic iPhone thing where like you can drop the phone and the glass doesn't break, things are fine, but then like GPS doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just the radio's just gone.
I remember I had a Nokia 3310, and I put it in the washing machine, and it came out, and I couldn't believe it still worked. I washed it in the pocket of my pants, and I couldn't believe that it still worked. And then I realized it took me a shameful amount of time. It took me like 2 days to realize that the antenna was completely forked, and
Well done.
Good save.
yeah, it was close. But it was completely gone and broken. I had no signal ever again.
Oh well. So you didn't use your phone for 2 days. That was back in the day when you didn't really need to use your phone every day.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we should have a podcast dedicated to old phones.
Yeah. What was your first phone? What was the phone that made you ditch that?
The LG Shine.
The LG Shine.
Yeah. The that like crazy kind of slider phone. It was the first phone on Rogers that had video calling. It had a front-facing camera, and it had video calling. It was not a great phone, but it was mine. And after that, I went BlackBerry. I had the Pearl, and then I had the Bold 9000, then the 9900, and then I went to Android, and then I never went back. I went to the Motorola Milestone was my first Android phone.
The Motorola Milestone.
Yep, that was the Droid. That was the international version of the Droid.
What was your phone, Doug? I feel like Daniel went like almost straight to smartphones. Like you.
So did I actually. And prior to owning this smartphone, I had actually never owned a cell phone, and like was known for screening phone calls with my answering machine. Because that's back when you had answering machines. And I had
Oh my god. If anybody has a
hilarious-
time machine, we shouldn't use it to go back and stop Act of War. We should just give it to Douglas so he can join us in the present.
What? This was 2004. And
Answering machine 2004.
I was leaving like Archer-worthy voice machine messages a decade before Archer, but mine was the BlackBerry 7100R, which was a smartphone in a feature phone body. So the precursor to the 8100 Pearl.
Mine was a Mitsubishi Triumph Mars, and it was like dumb phone. Like before dumb phones existed, this phone existed. I think
This was the dumbest phone.
It was the dumbest. Like I think it was replaced by
A rock.
No, this is. I always love talking about this because it brings me back to when before phones really had names, because no one gave a crap. Like it was just like, what phone is that? And it's like, oh, it's just a phone. Like
It's just,
you would never ask. So the phone that replaced it was this little blue Ericsson phone that was about the size of a box of matches, but like
Sony
with a flip
Ericsson or
phone.
Ericsson prior to the Sony Ericsson
I think
partnership?
it was prior. I think it was just Ericsson. But yeah, so the Mars Triumph was like a.
Keep in mind this was in Ireland, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
So I don't think we ever had Ericsson phones in Canada.
If I can find.
Uh,
The thing if I even
Yeah,
Google it, was just going to
stop
show
typing,
me.
Stop typing. It's
That's
killing
such
my
a
Bad.
brain cells. Just use voice.
Oh yeah. Okay,
Okay,
Google. Search Ericsson cell phone only available in Europe in the 90s.
Okay, Google. No, it didn't work. Okay, so
the future is now.
future. We're doing this live, guys. Breaking news: Action Launcher 3 is now available from Chris Lacey, master coder extraordinaire. Often accused of abandoning projects he no longer likes, but
Whoa.
you know.
Shots
Oh man,
fired.
don't hold back.
No, I'm not. I love him.
I
I think
know.
he's a great developer. I'm giving both sides of the story. It's an in-app purchase that you can get for premium. You can download it for free and then download the premium features for I think $6 ish. Looks beautiful. It's going to bring lollipop-like stylings to your Android 4.1 device and up. Action Launcher 3. I would love to get Chris Lacey on this show. I've seen him on I think it's This Week in Android, and he's fantastic. He's a really interesting guy. Anyway, I should tweet him. We should all tweet him at the same time.
Did you say Tuya?
I said Tuya.
Yeah, This Week in Android. Yeah. But
Are we
should
going to
also tweet
talk
him.
about all of the regulatory stuff that dropped in the past week?
Oh.
Or are we just going to punt that?
No. We're getting there. We were just we're lubing ourselves up for it. I think
Wow.
what we need to do.
No swearing, but we can make it infinitely more inappropriate using regular words.
That's right. That's what
Shout out
America
to our
likes.
sponsor.
We'll get to you, Roam Mobility. Mexico plans now available.
We're just lubing up.
Let's talk. Let's talk before we get into the regulatory stuff. Let's talk Intel. Intel's been doing some really cool stuff with some brands, Luxottica, and we titled this one.
Some brands.
Luxottica owns the world. Intel Edition. They have partnered with the owners of Ray-Ban and who else? Oakley.
Ray-Ban, Oakley, pretty much every brand of posh sunglasses, Prada, Gucci, Tiffany, like every brand of sports, premium, and fashion, they own it.
Yeah. So they are partnering with Intel to bring sort of a smart eyewear product to market next year. Intel has been pushing their smart wearables. They have the Mica, which is sort of a bracelet-like wearable that has a real-time OS. They have this. What else did they launch? They launched something else in the last couple of weeks. I feel like they did.
The
But
Peak
they're-
is on sale in Canada, right?
Oh, the Google Glass announcement, or at least
Or rumors.
rumor, that Intel will be powering the next Google Glass iteration. And we wrote about the blueprints that were filed by the
Yeah.
U.S. Patent Office.
FCC? No, USPTO.
I feel like a lot of people don't understand the gravity of this deal. Like, if they're powering Google Glass, that's fine. That's one thing. But this, first of all, this is a deal that spans multiple years. We don't know how long it is, but they did say it's like a multi-year deal. Two, Luxottica makes 80% of the world's sunglasses. Like 80%. If you put 10 people in a room, 8 of them are wearing Luxottica sunglasses. Like they earned what, 7.5 billion euro per year in revenue. Like
I wear my sunglasses.
so that's what I mean. So it could, that if the rumors about Google Glass are true, it's basically like that's bananas. They said they're going to make like premium glasses as well as like fashionable glasses and sports eyewear.
So
They're just going to do it all.
I think this is interesting because the CEO of Luxottica Group, Massimo Vian, said, "Together with Intel, we will continue to develop the potential of wearables, expanding the limits of what eyewear can be. We'll lead the change to create frames that are as intelligent and functional as they are beautiful," which I think has been the one major issue people have had with wearables, is that they're just not beautiful.
Yeah.
And especially those that you wear on your face all day, every day. I mean, it's one thing to be wearing a smartwatch that you can potentially hide with, under a sleeve. It's another thing to wear something like Google Glass that, you look at people's eyes. That's where your first connection to somebody.
But this is not a new problem. Like anybody who wears glasses, I know that when I go and buy glasses, I'm like, okay, I need something that's going to look good all the time because I might have to wear it with everything every day.
Sure.
So I don't understand why wearables is like they're like, oh well, it's just hard to please everyone.
Well, I think the beauty will hide the lack of functionality. Whereas if it's ugly, the only thing you have left is the functionality. And with a lot of these things, if we're saying that the functionality isn't really there yet or super well defined, you're just looking at like, instead of like, ooh, that looks pretty, I'd like to wear that. It's like, why would I want that on my face? But I actually think that like I know that you guys, I see why you guys are hyped about this, but I'm in terms of the other Intel announcements, I'm more excited by those just because I just see like that's more futuristic and cool and crazy, and I'm not sure what I believe in terms of the potential for eyewear wearables.
Yeah. I mean, it's not going anywhere. We've seen that.
Yeah, I mean, it's also important to note that March I think it was, Google signed the same deal with Luxottica. Like, not the same one, but Google signed a glass deal with Luxottica.
But that totally makes sense, because if Intel's powering the next generation of
yeah, no, that makes
glass,
sense.
then it was Warby Parker that was providing the glasses for this generation glass. Luxottica is a way bigger distributor of glasses than Warby Parker. Another Intel thing has been its creation of an Internet of Things platform. This is a bit kind of
dry,
a bit dull. But what it means basically is that they're trying to make Internet of Things products, any piece of technology that has a radio in it that can talk to another radio, be it a street lamp or a smart light bulb or whatever, that they want to make it secure, and they want to partner with existing companies like Accenture, Dell, SAP, Wipro to make them customer/enterprise friendly. We have no idea what's going to happen. They're still going to roll out Internet of Things developer kits. And they're partnering with McAfee, which they own, the security company.
Yeah.
So we don't know what's going to happen with this, but this is a big deal because this means that Intel is finally getting into mobile in a big way, even though it's not mobile in the traditional sense of what we think about.
Yeah, they're getting into connected, which is going to be mobile plus everything else.
Right.
And that press release was the most densely packed release of words that carry little meaning, because right now there's nothing to show but intention. And similarly with the TELUS release, the importance is that they're taking steps towards this, but it's not like we can truly evaluate methodology or impact. We're in that early stage land grab gold rush where people are trying to be first movers. So you have the Intel announcement, you have the TELUS announcement, where TELUS is essentially building Canada's first marketplace for IoT products and backing it with their sales teams and also like payments. So it's like bill tied into billing. And then just this week you had a local Toronto-based startup launch Freckle, which will be an beacon ad network for IoT. So basically, Minority Report style tracking in ads. And
sweet, can't wait.
I think these announcements are really important in seeing which companies are trying to get there first and have that first mover advantage. But
IoT is the least sexy aspect of mobile computing at the moment, but it could be the most disruptive in the long run, because the whole 5G standard is going to be built around the Internet of Things, right? Because Wi-Fi and cellular are going to cease differentiation, right? You're going to have just a single bunch of a single connection from which all of your devices will potentially talk to one another.
Well, that was the HTC One M8 taking its 90th tumble of its life.
Well, let's hope it's okay.
Go ahead. No, it's grand. It'll be fine. It's Trooper. It's champion.
It's grand. TELUS also announced Canada's first Internet of Things marketplace, which is also very interesting. What else is on the docket? We have the Ontario Parliament Ontario legislator introduced a Protecting Passenger Safety Act, a bill to address UberX essentially, basically trying to outlaw what it calls bandit cabs, cabs that are not licensed, that don't have a chip, that aren't insured properly.
Yeah.
So
at the same time, the Canadian Competition Bureau is saying legislation should change to support services like Uber. You have the Ontario MPP saying we need to regulate companies like Uber.
Yeah, and I think that there's a happy medium here. I think that forcing UberX drivers to be sufficiently insured is a positive measure. I think if somebody gets into an accident in an UberX cab and their insurance won't cover it, or the cab's insurance won't cover any medical problems that happen to its passengers when they're inside the cab, that's a big problem. But at the same time, you can't stop progress, and UberX is a very important. It's not a cab service so much as a ride-sharing service, and I think that we need to hammer down what that differentiation means.
Yeah, because it's the real thing, I guess, that is driving the growth is the UberX Black Cab, right?
Well, the UberX, the ability to undercut real cabs by hiring an UberX car, which is could essentially be you or me.
Yeah.
And
the sharing economy.
This morning, my fiance needed to get to work, and she was having problems, so she opened up Uber to see what the availability was like. And at 9 a.m. or 8:30 a.m. on a snow day, surge pricing was in effect, and it was 1.5 times the normal cost with a $22.50 minimum charge. Doesn't matter where you were going or how far.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a problem. So if there can be more cars on the road to meet that demand, then all the power to Uber for making that available to people. But that's just my opinion.
See, I heard when you said that, I imagined the CEO of Uber just dying of dehydration in front of me and me charging him surge pricing for a bottle of water. But I have noticed that Transit, one of our favorite apps for figuring out how long until the streetcar that will be jam-packed is coming, has integrated Uber car listings in there. So not only you can see what streetcars are nearby and when they're coming, but the closest Uber driver, which is very interesting.
It is. This comes after Google did the same thing earlier this year with Google Maps, but that's less prominent than this, right? Because when you get into transit, you see the closest streetcar, subway, or bus routes, and then right underneath it is Uber, unless you explicitly turn it off. But by default, it's there. And this is basically the company's way of saying, hey, Uber is not quite the same as having your own car on the road. This is just another form of urban transportation, another form of alleviating the number of cars on the road in the long run. That's debatable, but it's an interesting spin on a problem that we've been talking about for a very long time.
I think that the tech and the capabilities are very separate from, say, my opinion of Uber as a company and some of the issues that they're having with company culture. But I think no one begrudges the tech or the services or the opportunities presented by kind of mobile. I just don't. I'm not an Uber guy.
You're not an Uber guy. Cool. Well,
horse and carts.
You do like your CDs, and you did not get a cell phone.
Come on. I was on that sweet Halo tip before anybody else. So don't talk to me about being some sort of like retro. Let me take my unicycle my big front wheel bike down. I do not support. I do not support companies that openly discuss spending money to slander or attack journalists for reporting on the dumb crap that their executive board does.
Okay, no, hang on a second. Let's separate the Uber executive team and the technology behind Uber and the fact that it's being incredibly disruptive to an industry that needed disruption.
Yeah,
I don't support Uber's very, very like publicly heinous behavior towards journalists and towards just the public need in general. But in many ways it is filling a gap in an industry that needed to be messed with.
Yeah, well, another company can come along and fill that gap without it being Uber.
Well, Halo tried and they failed miserably.
Well, Halo tried, but with a slightly different model, right? I'm saying, and what I was just saying before was I have no problem with the technology. I have a problem with the people running it.
Mm-hmm.
In much of the same, we've had this conversation before with apps like Tinder. I have no problem with the, I think culture matters.
Sure, I agree with that. But I mean, this comes back to like the whole regulatory stuff goes back to, when a company gets big enough, it starts getting onto, it starts getting the attention of government regulatory bodies, and this happened with Microsoft. It happened with Google. I mean, the EU is talking about splitting up Google for whatever reason. They, talked about splitting up Microsoft and forced
Google
them to make
just left
changes.
Spain. Google was just like, fine, Spain, see ya.
Well, only for its news.
For news, yeah.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, they're basically saying, okay, fine, like we don't need you.
Yeah. Well, it's just like, so, there are reported stories of Uber having team parties where they would pick a celebrity and track their movements throughout the city, which is, beyond the journalism stuff. We're talking about user data and user privacy, which is interesting that the Privacy Commissioner of Canada, who I didn't know existed until we saw the release, along with other provincial and international bodies, have requested that all app makers or all app stores support a policy whereby developers must disclose their privacy policy for any application that mines personal user data. So, like, not only what they're using the data for, but why.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with that. And, I hope that this sets a precedent for other countries. Because data is the new. I mean, data is the new currency, right?
Yeah.
That these companies are amassing so much information about us, and we assume that they're not using it for nefarious purposes. But as you've shown, as has been shown by other companies, they are. They're taking advantage of how open we are and how willing to check boxes we are.
Or not even necessarily nefarious, but even just like stupid and annoying or like very human situations that are, not like just you just don't, like, you can't trust, like, the policies aren't in place, so it's individual people that may or may not be compelling making those decisions. Like it's the whole thing with the like the NSA and the spying. It's like, it's not that like there's a criminal mastermind behind it all. It's just like regular human beings checking to see what their ex-girlfriend was up to and stuff like that. And like you don't want. That's why privacy exists.
Right, but do we get? Do we have an obvious like guarantee of privacy? Should we? And that's something else that happened. The Supreme Court ruled today that if you're arrested, you don't need a search warrant to get into somebody's phone. Like, that was a 4-3 decision. It went against what happened in the U.S. earlier this year, and the U.S. Supreme Court said that it violated the Fourth Amendment. We don't have those same kind of fundamental.
What's the Fourth Amendment?
The right of search and seizure. So the right against search and seizure.
Okay, because I know that the three, it was 4-3. So the three people who were against had said that I guess it all centered around this one case where someone had their phone searched after they were arrested, and they said that it violated his constitutional right to privacy. Like, they said that it was a violation of his constitutional rights, and that it should not have been shouldn't have happened, but it also shouldn't have been admitted as evidence. But yeah, they were on the losing side of that argument, I guess. But
right, because the judges that said that it wasn't a violation of somebody's privacy are likening a person's cell phone to a person's bag, which
they're not really. They know that because this is like 23,000 words and I read it twice, so I'm like, and I think I don't have a full grasp on what they're saying or what it means. But they're saying that it's not like a briefcase or a document, in that it can have infinite amounts of information about someone. But their workaround for that is to say that it's fine if you arrest me to look at my phone, but you can only look at, the most recent things that I've done. So you can look at like recent calls, recent emails that have been sent, recent photos that have been taken. And the problem that I see with it is that they need to define what recent is, and it's going to change with everything, with every crime and with every incident. But the four, I guess you have to meet 4 criteria if they want to search your phone, and one of them is that the third one is that the nature and extent of the search has to be tailored to its purpose. So they're saying that there's no blanket rule that will cover everything, and I would agree with that. But the problem with that is then anything that the police can then say they felt was relevant, they can do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is because then we're seeing like, are you trusting the police to do that?
Right, and that's
in good faith.
And so the 4 criteria is that the first is that the arrest itself has to be lawful, and already, I see people having trust issues with that because, we've seen a lot of cases. Well, we just like it's just fact is that not every person in a position of authority is a good person. And, it's easy to say that the arrest must be lawful, but what happens when it's unlawful arrest? It's like the search has already happened at that point. Even if it's deemed to be unlawful, they're already searching your phone. Mm-hmm. Second is that it has to be truly incidental to the arrest. It has to be relevant to what they've arrested you for, which, again, they can say that that's anything. Third is that the nature and extent has to be tailored to the purpose, which, is problematic also because then you're relying on those people to make judgment decisions, which is how we got into this position in the first place, and why the Supreme Court was forced to make a ruling was that 2 cops made it, or 2, I think it was 2, made a judgment call, and they said that they wanted to look at his phone to see if he had evidence, and they found it. But, that was their call to make, even if they had been wrong. And then the last thing is that the police have to take notes. Detailed notes was the suggestion. So they have to notes about everything they're looking at, their procedure, what they're how long they're examining the device for, every part of the device that they examine, they have to write it down. And again, that's just relying on their honesty and their judgment and their trust that that procedure alone will be enough to keep them from. And they say it in the judgment. They say, we're not saying it's okay for them to browse your phone, and they use the word browse. So, but at the same time, I don't know.
So
I don't trust everyone.
This demonstrates that law is not only judgments precedent set. So how this judgment comes down and is articulated will be defined by specific cases and how they're tried when this comes into evidence.
Yeah.
But then also, I can very much see 2 things happening. So a police applications which will track the last recent things that you were doing. So should you be arrested, you can say these were the most recent things I were doing on my phone. You can't touch anything else. And then activity or key loggers for situations where the police officers have your phone. So if they're not taking notes, you can know what they were looking at. Right.
I think that's more. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. I think that's more realistic than what you're talking about. As I know, then you have the issue or the case where the suspect is saying, "Here's an app on my phone that shows you what I just did, and you can't look at anything outside that app." Because then you're saying you're trusting the suspect to be honest, I guess.
Yeah.
And then you bring back burner phones are still always going to be useful. I just don't understand. The opposing side was saying that the reason, so common law allows the police to search you when you're arrested, and the reason behind that is so that, you know, if you're carrying a weapon or if they believe that something you have on your person is a threat to public safety or a threat to their safety, that's what the search is for, and that's why they're allowed to search you without a warrant. And the people against this judgment were saying that what part of a cell phone could be considered a threat? And even if, you know, there are extreme cases where it is, what I don't understand is why they wouldn't just seize the property if they believe it's being used to commit a crime.
Yeah.
The laws for the seizure of property without a warrant cover that basically if you believe it's been used to commit a crime, if it's been obtained, if the property has been obtained through, you know, via a crime that's been committed, they're allowed to take it. So I don't know why they wouldn't do that.
So are the laws in Canada for
seizure of property?
Seizure of property the same as they are in the U.S.?
I don't know, but I have them right here, and it says under Section 489 of the Canadian Criminal Procedure and Practice for Search and Seizure of Property, a peace officer in lawful execution of their duty may seize anything without a warrant that they reasonably believe to be obtained by a crime, used in a crime, or affords evidence of a crime. So that, I would feel like the third part of that really just covers like what they're asking for, which is they feel that by searching your phone, it might give them evidence, like faster evidence of a crime that was committed. So they're, in the case that they discussed in today's ruling, they said that these guys had like robbed a jewelry kiosk, and it was an armed robbery. It's still not really clear if the gun was real or fake, but they believed the gun to be real at the time, and they caught these two guys, and they said they looked at the phone because there was stolen property and what they believed to be a weapon unaccounted for, and they felt like the phone would help them get that property and that weapon off the street. So I don't understand why then they wouldn't have just seized the property as evidence.
Right.
Especially because this was a case, this was not the case of like scumbag police. They looked at the phone very briefly, and then they went back later and actually obtained a warrant, which is why, even though, and again, I'm going to read it a third time just so that I can fully digest it. I'm still not sure if the Supreme Court ruled that they made the right call, but I know that the Supreme Court chose to dismiss the appeal from this guy who said that it was an invasion of his privacy, because when they did apply for a warrant, he didn't object to the warrant. So they were saying you can't argue that it was an invasion of your privacy if they then applied for a full warrant and you didn't contest the warrant.
Would it matter if there was a security lock on the phone?
So that's one of the things. One of the readers made a good point of, if they arrest you and ask for your PIN code, can't you just say, I want to speak to a lawyer, I want to speak to a lawyer, I want to speak to a lawyer? And if they can't access your phone, then...
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. But yeah, they did say that was part of the reason today's ruling was that how it came about was that there's been so many different approaches over the years where the police only looked if there was no password, or you know, if there was a password, they weren't allowed to, or they felt they weren't allowed to. So
am I wrong in assuming that they also have software now able to bypass that?
But then I think that today's ruling, they go on about, you know, it needs to be prompt. It needs to be a prompt search. So I think then what you're coming into is it's like you're not searching. It's not a cursory glance at the most recent call logs to see if they called the getaway car. You're saying, well, we're going to take it back to the station and we're going to, you know.
Yeah. So it's not a CSI smartphone and they're, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Then they're saying, well, then you have to get a warrant. Like, if you have time to do that, you have time to get a warrant. They have a hotline 24 hours a day called telewarrant that they can use to apply for warrants for these situations. So I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. It's super interesting. But bottom line is, if you're saying that if you don't have anything to hide, you shouldn't be worried by this, that's crap. And you should definitely be upset by this, I think. Because there's some people who are saying, well, we shouldn't afford criminals privacy in the first place. But it's not criminals who should be worried. It's regular people.
Yeah, right. I mean, you're only a criminal once you're convicted, not once you're arrested.
Yeah, and someone else said that. They said that if, you know, oh, you're saying only criminals should be worried, or if you haven't done anything wrong, then why do you have anything to hide? And it's like, no, if you're arrested and if you're arrested because they think you're drunk and they decide to check your phone to see, you know, where you were, if you have any pictures of you doing shots, like, who knows what they're going to see on your phone? And if you're found innocent, then they've seen all your stuff, and you haven't done anything wrong.
It's not a need to hide. It's a right It's a right to privacy in a
and it
burden.
goes and it goes back to the whole NSA Prism stuff when they're saying, a lot of people when that happened said, well, if you don't have anything to hide, then you shouldn't be worried. And it's like, well, I don't have anything to hide, but this is when I want cameras mounted in my house and broadcasting to the internet.
Yeah.
Right, but
so we've been teasing this.
I mean, the NSA's purview was for non-Americans or Americans or non-Americans living in the country or non-Americans in general, right? Like, the whole idea of it was that they were monitoring Americans even if they didn't mean to. Like, this is...
No, they were monitoring everyone to track non-Americans either in the country or in contact from abroad.
Right.
But I don't know. We've been teasing this for a while, but we got a special podcast coming up where I think we're gonna.
We're gonna talk about this a bit next week.
Yeah.
It's not set in stone, so I don't wanna.
Don't get your hopes up.
Get your hopes half up. So I think finally, if we want to sort of go back to the consumer.
End on a high note.
End on an interesting note. One of the biggest Windows Phone supporters that I know, and probably the internet knows, Tom Warren, who's a Verge staff writer who started Windows. Forget what he did. This was like back in 2011 before he did that. Anyway, he's given up on Windows Phone because he says that Microsoft has given up on Windows Phone. That they don't have the apps that he needs. They don't have the carrier / even Microsoft support that they need, and that he can get a better Microsoft experience like Google does on iOS. They can get a better Microsoft experience on iOS and Android, which I actually find interesting in light of the fact that they're releasing many apps on iOS and Android that weren't previously available.
Yeah, it's because their mobile-first strategy means that they're prioritizing where the mobile users are rather than trying to bring them along to their own platform. They are now a distributed services company.
Yep. Which is great.
Yeah.
I think that's really great. I think that they're doing right by their platform, right? Microsoft's platform is not just Windows anymore. It's a bunch of disparate services that fall under the Office umbrella. It falls under the Outlook umbrella, OneNote, like all of these things. They're services that need to be available on every platform, and I think they're going about it the right way.
Yeah, it's a portfolio now. One might even say. I don't even think it's a platform. It's just it's all these nodes connecting together, rather than and back in the day, the only way that you could get the full portfolio of Microsoft software and services was in a big bin called Windows, and now those bins are no longer required.
Yeah. And the other thing he says is that a lot of the flagships that Nokia was working on before they were acquired by Microsoft have been shelved or canceled, and it doesn't look like they're really focusing on any high-end hardware anymore because they're just not making any money for the company.
Yeah.
So Tom Warren has moved on to an iPhone, and he still has a Windows Phone, and he will probably always write about Microsoft.
This guy is like, what? He's the founder of WinRumors, right?
WinRumors, that's it. Yeah.
Like, that's what. So for him to make that statement is pretty big, and whatever faith that we have in Microsoft and their efforts with Windows Phone, like this guy, you would assume would have more.
Right.
But yeah, it's sad.
But that being said, the Windows, the Lumia 830 is available in Canada. That's kind of the high-end phone that you can get right now from Windows Phone.
The high-end, low-end.
Hey, new Foursquare app.
Yeah.
For Windows tablet.
Finally.
Well, because the Windows.
Well, they got the Foursquare one. They got the phone one last week.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Windows Phone is a great example of a well-engineered platform that just can't exist without developer support.
Yeah, it's OS2 work.
It's true. So, I don't know. Do you guys have anything else on your
You
minds?
said we're gonna finish consumer. I thought that meant high note, and it didn't mean high note. It just meant low note.
I mean, shout out Jeff Bouchard.
Oh God.
Sorry for breaking your heart, buddy.
Yeah. What are you getting for Christmas, Jeff?
Sad panda.
What else? No, nothing else. I think.
Hey, we're going to Ho Ho To tonight.
Yeah.
To raise money for charity, Toronto Food Banks. You probably can't be there because you'll be hearing this after the event, but I'm sure there's still a way to donate if you're at all interested, simply because Toronto Food Banks, they're in a great need, and as we approach the holidays, it would not be the worst thing to do. So that those $5 that you weren't going to spend on those free-to-play app updates, maybe toss it someone else's way.
If you're feeling super selfish, Scrolls came out for Android tablets today, which also costs $5.
And on the other side,
I'm just saying, you said, $5 if you're not going to spend on free-to-play. I'm like, if you're the kind that would. But yes, always charity better. Do charity. Good.
You do you, podcast listener. You do you.
Whatever way you decide to go, we love you.
Yeah, we love you anyway.
Do we got any comments from the last pod that we want to discuss, or?
Besides from me not being a cat person? No.
You're a good person, Daniel. Don't let them get you down.
Oh, I would never. I would never dream.
I honestly think that maybe 70% of my job since I came to MobileSyrup is just all of us telling each other that we're awesome.
That's the only reason to hire coworkers.
Self-affirmation that happens at MobileSyrup. You're great, Daniel.
You're great too, Jane. And Doug.
And Doug, you as well. And Ian. What a hero.
What a guy.
What a hero.
He's working on the back end stuff. Hopefully next week will be everything will be more stable. We apologize for any downtime that happened earlier this week.
We're upgrading all the servers to Windows 98, so that
Windows Phone. Trust us when we say that it was more painful for us than it was for you.
Okay, and Schulitzer said, don't let anybody monopolize a topic, which I assume is me, because I tend to talk.
That is a Tron subtweet, if there ever was one.
Yeah, I'll keep that in mind the next time I talk about Supreme Court justice rulings for.
No, that was super interesting.
No, that was really cool.
We also want to give a shout out to the penultimate episode of Serial.
Yeah, I haven't listened to it yet.
And I also want to give a great shout out to our sponsor, Roll Mobility. They just launched New Mexico plans, and they're much better than most of the carrier-sold bundles that you can buy, from Rogers, Bell, or Telus. And
just to clarify, those are Mexico plans that are new, not New Mexico plans.
Correct. You can.
Because I was like, New Mexico plans. What happens there so often?
You can get rural mobility in New Mexico, and you can also then go to real Mexico.
They have all the Mexicos covered.
Yes.
So
whatever your Mexico, Rome has got you covered.
Rome has got you. Thank you very much, guys. Go to roammobility.com to learn more, and thank you everybody for listening. We really appreciate it. Please give us a review, comment, suggestion, thumbs up, thumbs sideways, whatever you want to do. Don't text and drive.
Yep.
Don't drive at all today.
Well, if you're in Toronto, don't drive at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you get arrested, request a lawyer.
Yeah. Whatever you do it for the pod.
Yes, always.
And that's a great way to close.
So are we closing?
ABC.
Always be closing.